Hello, everyone. You guys are listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network, and this is the Author Corner, but we're also combining it with the Business Showcase today, so I'm kind of excited about that, to be able to blend both in business and author, and we've got quite a gentleman here that you guys are excited to meet. But before we get started, let's do our homework up above of our website, GoingSoloMedia.com. I am Cece Shatz, the host of the show. I'm the doyenne of relationship building, and I'm also the owner of Going Solo Network. And I want to welcome you guys to all of the things that we do here with singles, and we hope that you enjoy it and as much as we do. But let's get on with the show, because we got a jam-packed show today. And I tell you what, this gentleman here, it is unbelievable that what we have, the wonderful quality guests that we do have with us. We have Dr. David Phelps, and he has written a wonderful book called What's Your Next? And the blueprint for creating your freedom lifestyle. And thank you so much for being on the show here today. We appreciate it.
Cece, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
It is great having you. I tell you what, I read a little bit about your background, and I was just so impressed with not only your quality of individual you are yourself, but what you do for other people. But let's get started a little bit with sharing with our audience a little bit about your background. Now, you were a dentist. You worked as a dentist for 21 years, and then something happened in your life that created that shift that you're now going through. And so often people out there in our Going Solo Network land, they are also experiencing shifts in their lives. And so I thought definitely your story could definitely be honored within our community. So share with us a little bit about your background.
Certainly, Cece. Well, like I think every one of us, as we mature in life and get into our teens, and then maybe we go on to a career or vocation, we get married, we start our lives, and life tends to be something we have a lot of exuberance about. It's we want to do this thing. We've been waiting all our life to get older, to have our own responsibilities and build our own lives. And those dreams and visions are great. But as you well know, and probably all of our listeners today, life is not something that just is a smooth movement from point A to point B. There are these shifts. There are situations that occur in our lives, not all of which we can control. Some yes, maybe not. So I was very typical, I guess, of again, a young man who in school, I worked hard. I got good enough grades that I could kind of set my pathway, and I followed a little bit my father's path. He was an eye surgeon. I didn't go exactly into medicine, but I went into dentistry, a corollary, and for reasons that I thought were more suited to a family lifestyle with good hours. And that was great. And I got into dentistry and started building a practice and doing all the things you have to do as a business owner, and learning how to be a better manager, and also enhancing my own skill sets. But what turned the tables on me early on was my daughter, my only child, when she was 2.5 years old. And this was some 26, 7 years ago. She was diagnosed with high-risk leukemia. That was a turning point in our lives. Her mother and I had to go through some very difficult times with dealing with a child with leukemia. She survived that. Unfortunately, our marriage did not. So I fit right in with going solo. I had to go solo for a number of years before I remarried, focused on being a best father I could be during those times, and refocusing on really what was life all about. But that wasn't the end of it. Jenna, although she survived leukemia, she had some years of uncontrolled epileptic seizures. She had to take a lot of medication, anti-seizure medications. And at age 12, she was in end-stage liver failure. Her liver was no longer functioning because of all the chemotherapy that she took when she was fighting cancer, the anti-seizure medications. She had, a liver of a 70-year-old cirrhotic liver of someone who maybe, did too much alcoholic drinking during their life. I'm just using it as a counterpart. So here we are facing a child who, without a new liver, is not going to survive. With the grace of God, and I think the people that are willing to donate organs when a family member passes away, she was recipient of a liver from a child whose life was ended, unfortunately, in a car accident. So the gift of life went on through that. But that was the time in my life when Jenna was recovering from that liver transplant, many months in and out of the hospital. when I actually had a time to actually think about where was my time most relevant? Where did I need to focus my time? Obviously, I had to provide financial security for my family. That's a number one. But was I able to be there with my family without some kind of constraints, some conflict, right? It was hard. I was back and forth from my practice, going back and forth to Houston, where she had the transplant, and then back to my practice in Dallas. And this was very, very conflicting because I realized really that I can't take these things for granted. Life we can't take for granted. Time with our family, I can't take that for granted. So, Cece, I made a decision to sell my practice at that point, and I did so. Now, it wasn't smooth. It had some difficulty there. But what I found on the other side, getting through the difficult times of not only divorce, a child with healthcare issues, a practice sale that didn't work out exactly right the first time, but what I found out through the adversity is that there is another life. There is a what's your next. It can be painful to get through it, but if you do it with some certain frameworks, and one of those is, as I know you're a big fan of, is relationships. Investing in relationships. Who are other people who have gone through or going through similar situations, who can show you a light at the end of the tunnel that can be there. We just don't want to do it solo. So that's my short background and kind of what took me to where I am today. And we can talk more about what my next is, but that was my inspiration for the book and for being here today.
Oh, it is tough sometimes when we go through those situations that are in our lives, and so many people out there are listening. They're going through maybe even something similar, something a little bit different, but it's also something that's creating a shift in their lives, making them really start to think about their lives, the way they're going and the path that they're going on. Now you are actually a recognized speaker and for creating freedom, and you really help others look at the logical, rational, professionals way, and really kind of build up their dreams. And I've often said that to people, that I think that you have to manifest those dreams, right? And so what you're helping people is really be strategic about manifesting their dreams into freedom. And so let's talk a little bit about that, because I think that also embraces your book, isn't it? The blueprint for creating freedom and lifestyle.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, CC, that our identity becomes so based on what we do in life, what our education is, licensing, degrees, whatever it might be. That becomes our identity. And so we take that identity, and society really has its own definition of success, right? And for most of society, the look of success is how you look, where you live, and in the house you live in, and maybe a vacation home, and where you travel, where your kids go to school, and the cars you drive. And these definitions of success aren't really true. And when you get right down to it, when you go through difficult times in life, that's when I think you get to refocus on what's really important. And for a lot of people, there's this kind of mystical someday when I get all these things all in alignment, meaning finances and the business is running well, and you wait till that mystical someday, which never comes for a lot of people. It's just, so we're postponing really, I think, finding true value in life, happiness, however you want to define happiness. We're postponing those to another day. And that's why I say that, I relate to the logical, rational people, because I am definitely that. I mean, I analyze everything. I'm a big planner. I plan to my detriment many times. And it was really going through the adversity, particularly with my daughter, to realize that I can't wait for that someday. I can't wait to have it all right. I can't wait to have enough money stacked up so I feel secure, because there's always elements in life that will come in and sideswipe us. And we have to be adaptable. We have to be flexible. We have to be able to pivot and iterate in our lives, and not let those setbacks just cause us to go into an abyss where we can't climb out. It's really lessons in life that I think are worth understanding, and not trying to push back on, but actually engaging with them, and then using those times in life to really become more focused, more purposeful in life, and looking for chances to evolve from whatever we've been doing, not to completely leave your current field of business or practice or career, but how can you modify it? How can you sort of change it and add the elements of life that maybe you've been postponing to someday, which again may never come.
Yeah, that is so true. So often in our lives, we're not happy with what we're doing, right? And I talk to a lot of people, especially the young people, if they're starting to focus on their career, and I tell them, well, a lot of times your career will make a shift. There'll be a shift in your life that will happen, because whatever, who you are today is not who you're going to be tomorrow. And so as you keep moving through life, things kind of happen. And if you do have this rigid thinking, like you said, if you're, I think it's great to be a planner. I, kind of am a little bit myself. But if you're too rigid in your way of thinking, you can't really embrace the shifts that happen in your life. And even though sometimes those shifts are really truly wake up calls, and they're quite tragic sometimes in your life, quite painful, there can be another side to it. And like even what you've experienced with your daughter, it was very scary, I'm sure, and very hard and very painful and all of that, to see that go through. But where you are today and where she is today, is definitely a step in another direction that you've taken. And it's quite awesome to see people embracing their dreams, and not living in a life that they're not happy with.
Yeah, you take advantage of the shifts, for sure, Cece. My daughter, she's 28 years old now, and she definitely is a survivor. She looks at life, I think, with a more mature attitude, because of her situations in her health. Her first 18 years were very, very difficult, and as a child, children don't really, they're pretty resilient. But as she's matured, she has a lot of respect for life and for being more focused. And she's in school. She's catching up because she missed a lot of school when she was younger. But she has an outlook on life that I think is way beyond what mine was at her age. And I'm grateful for that. I'm not grateful that she had to go through what she did. I wish I could have taken that on myself as her father, but I couldn't. I could just be there and be supportive with her mother, help her get through it. But it changed her for the better, I believe. It changed me definitely for the better, and just gave me the opportunity to find some other skill sets, some other passions I had in life. I like you and so many people. I love to help other people, and I did that very successfully as a dentist. That's one way I help people, but it's not the only way I could help people. And having the chance and kind of given that reason why, that defining moment when Jenna was sick in the hospital, and I made that decision that I'm going to sell the practice, and I'm not going to do my life that way. Particularly, I didn't know exactly how I would do it after that. I could still go back and do dentistry, but I just didn't want the obligation of that ownership of that practice. Even though it was good, it wasn't serving where I wanted to be at that point in my life. So I made that transition, and it allowed me to evolve. And that's really what the book's about. In What's Your Next, I talk about the frameworks, the questions to ask yourself to allow you to evolve, because there's always other skills and passions that probably kind of got shut down because you got into a career that said, this is the way you are, you put this hat on, this is how you behave, this is what you do. And we tend to follow that so strictly, as you said, so rigidly as planners, that doesn't allow us to really find those other things in life that we could express. I was never a studied speaker, professional speaker. I had to learn to do that, to become comfortable with speaking, because again, I'm very much, I usually always think with my head. So speaking in front of people was not easy because I wanted it all planned out. Well, I had to learn how to let go of that and just be myself and learn to speak from the heart. It wasn't a skill set that I had developed through training. I had to learn to do that because I had a passion of, giving my story to other people to see where I could help them. So I'm not super polished. I'm not, an expert, but it's something that I learned to do. Writing a book, expressing my inner thinkings and digging in and taking the lessons I've learned was a great experience, because when you dig back into your own life, everybody's got a story. I say to people, what's your story? You've got a story. You can tell that to other people. You can share things in life that you've learned, and that's another way to benefit other people beyond what you're currently doing today and whatever your business or career may be.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. It's what's your next. I mean, what is your next? And then the blueprint for creating freedom lifestyle. So let's talk a little bit about moving forward, because a lot of times people are held back because of fear, right? I'm always asked what is the biggest thing that stands in people's way of moving forward in their life, and it's fear. Being able to step out of the box and look at life a little bit differently. So what would you say to those today that are a little bit struggling with their lives, and fear is holding them back?
Sure, it's a great question, Cece. Fear is a big obstacle for us to moving forward in anything in life, because we want to stay where we're comfortable. We want to stay with what we know is true today, and making a move to something that's foreign, that we can actually see and envision, that is scary. So I would say, first of all, don't live life solo. And it's hard to do when you're going through tough times. I know you've had people on your show that have talked about tough times, and we all have egos. We have egos, and we don't want to act like we're vulnerable and like we need help. We want to feel like we've got it all together. But the fact is, nobody has it all together. Everybody, I don't care how successful they may look, they've gone through some tough times. They may be going through some tough times, and we just don't know it because they're not showing it. So when you're going through a difficult time and you feel like you've got to make some changes, you can't stay where you are, then you've got to find other people. It's community, it's relationships, it's what you've done so well to help people that are in that solo period of life and figure out what's there next. Is you've got to find other people that you can know, like, and trust, because trust is the first thing we have to have before we can be vulnerable. And to be vulnerable, to be able to express to other trusted people what we're feeling, it's a hard thing to do. But when you've got that kind of a community where you can actually be yourself and talk about things that you're fearful of, and other people can talk about, I've been there, I can relate to you, I've done that, and here's what I've done, here's how I got over it. That support of other people is so critical in life. So I would say, when you're going through a tough time, don't hibernate. Don't go into your hole, your cave, and feel like you've got to figure this out by yourself, because that's the worst thing you can do. Find other people, because there's people that have been there, gone through it, and can help you get to that next place in life that's just waiting for you.
Yeah, you're so right. Connecting with I always say, connecting with other like-minded people.
Yes.
And the reason I say the like-minded is because they know they've walked in your shoes. They know what you've gone through. And so they totally understand what you're feeling, and they can appreciate it.
Yes.
Sometimes it takes us a while to be able to get through, and they kind of get that. And so you definitely do. You're doing so much in your life right now. You've written this terrific book, which I hope everyone will go out and get it. Now, where do we find this book at?
Yeah, this is the book. I'll just show you. It's What's Your Next. So you can get it on Amazon. It's the actual, you can pre-order it on Amazon today. The actual publishing launch date will be on February 23rd, so just a couple weeks out. You can also go to findyournext.com and order it there. Also, there's a lot of pre-order bonuses, just additional frameworks, some interviews I've done, again, to help people take this idea of the shifts, as you so well call it, Cece, and go to your next. So Amazon and also findyournext.com will be a place where you can find the book, What's Your Next?
Yeah, that would be great to be able to get that. And it's exciting to be able to, pre-order a book. So you're getting the book right hot off the press. You're going to read it right off the bat. And there's just something about when you do something like that, it's the excitement, right? You're within the excitement of something new, and something that's going to be touching everyone. So I'm kind of excited about that myself. I think it's a great book. So I'm definitely going to get it myself, because I think that we need a blueprint, right? We need a blueprint to be able to kind of help move us through and understand kind of where we want to go, because that blueprint, don't you think that what we decide that we want to do kind of shifts, doesn't it? It kind of keeps shifting. And so when we create a blueprint, we're creating kind of an outline of what
Correct.
that we want our lives to be. Right?
It's a great way to look at it, because you're right. It will iterate. It will shift. It's never static. But having some frameworks, having some guidelines on what are the key aspects, questions you want to be asking yourself, or with your partner, asking, what do you want life to look like? Here's where we are today. Whatever it may be, good, bad, ugly, whatever it might be, where do we want to go? Envisioning that, being specific, and then having some frameworks for how to move the needle to get there is really, really important. In school, we have a definite guide path going from one grade to the next, right? We have to pass certain tests. We have guidelines, and as high as you want to go on the totem pole of education, there's always a position where you go to this grade, you go to this level, you take these tests, you pass this. Well, life doesn't really have that. Once you're out, life is up to you. And again, you have to go back to have some kind of frameworks, but you get to design them. It's not a teacher. It's not some agenda by somebody else. You get to design your own life. But again, doing it in the context of some frameworks that give you guideposts and questions to ask, that's what I believe really helps people, because you've got to begin with the end in mind. Stephen Covey said it well in his book. Begin with the end in mind. What do you want things to look like? wherever you are today, what do you want to look like? And then reverse engineer, build back. And now you've got some guidelines, some guideposts that will help take you there. So that's the construct of the book in a nutshell.
Yeah, I think it's great. We as being single, right, stepping from a relationship loss, moving through that transition of rebuilding our lives. I often say, your life is your choice. Here it is. It's right here for you to be able to grasp and do what you want to do. And so having something like, and I think reading your book will also inspire them to create a blueprint of their own, to be able to not only establish their own freedom lifestyle, but to establish their lifestyle that they want. And I think it's absolutely very positive, very motivating. And I'm looking forward to talking a little bit more about it when we come back from the break. So we got to take a quick break. And you guys know the drill. We're going to do a little video here for you. But when we come back, do make sure you stay right here with us, because it's only going to be a few seconds. But when we come back, we're going to talk about some of the other exciting things that Dr. Phelps is working on, that he's bringing forward. And also he's got a couple other books that he's written, and we want to share those with you also. So we got a lot jam-packed in the second half of this show. So you want to stay with us right here on the Author's Corner, Meet the Author, and also the Business Showcase with Dr. David Phelps today. So hold right there with us. We'll be right back. Hello, everyone. We're back, and welcome back to the show. We hope that you enjoyed that commercial, but we have a great guest with us here today. And I am just really thrilled that we are actually talking about both the Business Showcase and the Author's Corner. And it's very exciting. You guys are listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. We are a live streaming TV station and also a radio station, which is a 24/7. So you guys can find us right there on GoingSoloMedia.com. So let's get on with our guest, because he is a delight, and we are learning so much about him and about what he's doing on creating a shift for people, really creating that shift in their lives. And it looks like we have a comment here. Let's see what we have. Oh, I don't know what that person's saying, so we'll move on with that. But anyhow, so let's talk to Dr. David Phelps. Thank you so much for waiting with us on that commercial.
Glad to be here. Love the discussion.
Yeah, we had a great first half of the show. We talked a little bit about your journey, what really propelled you into that shift of moving forward into this particular field in your life. And then let's talk a little bit about just give our audience a little bit of a hint about how to create a blueprint for themselves. If they're looking at their life where there's a lot of shift happening, a lot of things going on, what could they do to start helping putting that into place a little bit for them?
Cece, the best place that I can engineer, ideas or vision for whatever the challenge may be. And I'm talking about challenges that, can occur every day, whether it's in your personal life, your business, or if you're going through a really adverse time in your life. There's nothing like being with other people that can help give you clarity. We all have blind spots. We all, are in the deep in the forest of our own lives. We can only see what we can see. Our experiences, our perspective. We all have limiting beliefs about what we believe is true. It's all based on our experiences. What we believe is real to us, but what may be really true may not be something that we've actually seen. So again, I'm just going to go back to what I said earlier, is that you've got to find in our group, Freedom Planners, we call it your five. It's just a term for who are the key people, relationships in your life. And I say the five because you ought to be able to identify, at least five people that are, strongholds in your life. Probably not family members. It could be, but people that you've been involved with. It could be business, social context, but whatever they are, people that you've actually identified that have core values that are similar to yours, that when you need to get some advice and perspective, you could go to one or several of those five people. That's a starting place. So investing in your relationships all along life is very, very important. And I think that's where I've received a lot of clarity. I've had people ask me questions about what I think I'm going to do or what I'm going to move to next, or a situation that's an opportunity. And I get a lot of clarity because to have people ask you questions, people that care about you, that don't have an agenda, but just actually care about you, can give you that clarity. So just again, don't do this solo. Life is meant to be done with other people. Find those right people and utilize the mutual benefits that you can have with each other in developing, a next step for both sides. It works both ways. It's collaborative.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I'll just share with you, just recently I was talking to one of my friends, one of close friends, like you said, the five. And I was talking to her and sharing with her some information about me and kind of what I'm going through. And then she started kind of talking back, to me, sharing some things with me. And then I realized I have said these same things to her. And it's like, okay, sometimes we don't hear ourselves, we need someone else to kind of bounce it off of and bring it back to us. And so, and often I think, Dr. Phelps, I wonder how you feel about this, is I think sometimes deep down we know the answers, right? But we need that sounding board to be able to play that out and be able to hear that and then bring it back to us. So, it's a little bit of a soul searching and expression, and that's very, very important, isn't it?
Yeah, I think forcing ourselves to articulate verbally to somebody else what we're thinking, what our conflicts are, what we believe are barriers or challenges to moving from our current state to the desired state. The forcing ourselves to articulate that rather than just letting it run in our head day after day after day, because we can spin a lot of thoughts in our head, but it gets confusing. Because I find when I have to articulate something to somebody else, it gives me clarity. It forces me to really think about what I'm going to say, because I want to make sure I can say it in a sensible way to the other person. Now it forces me to take all these myriad of thoughts and put them into some context. And that's the first step. And sometimes as you said, you get your own answers and things that have already been in your head, but now you get the clarity just by stating them to somebody else. And then you get the feedback from them or additional questions back for them to gain clarity on what you're saying. And it really starts to give you a focal point to do something, to take some action. That's the next part of it, CC, is we can think and we can analyze, almost, ad infinitum, what possibilities are or reasons why we can't do something. And so actually articulating and then having an opportunity to take, well, what's the next step? Somebody from the outside can say, well, could you just do this? Could you just engage with this person? Could you just try this one thing? Not a big step, but a next step, because being in momentum, it's a lot easier to make shifts. If we're static and just staying in place without any kind of momentum at all, very difficult to make any kind of transformation in our lives. So we've got to be doing something, even if that something isn't necessarily the exact right thing. It will give you some direction. And then from there, now you can iterate from there and shift a little bit from there to move towards that direction, that vision of what you believe you want your life to look like outside of this position that you're in right now, the position where maybe life is not great. You've gone through some hardships, or maybe life is pretty good, but there's still something missing in your life, and you're trying to figure out, well, what is that? What's missing? Why am I not satisfied? And just that deep soul reflection, doing it with other people, I think is really a key part of figuring out how to go forward.
I do apologize for that. It's like embracing life. It's allowing yourself to be able to really let yourself go a little bit, thinking all things could be possible, right? And that's what I love so much about the book that you've written, because it really bases it on your dreams. It's allowing yourself to step beyond where you are now, thinking about where you want to be in the future, and then putting a plan together that can continuously maybe evolve
Yes.
around your life as it's going. And so it's a beautiful thing. So I really hope everyone will go out and buy your book. And again, let's share it on the website, because I think it's so important everyone knows where to find it. But it's very easy to find, because it's findyournext.com, and that's FIND your YOUR next NEXT.com. So it's very easy in which to get it. And then of course you can get it on Amazon. It's not out yet. You can pre-order it. Definitely do that. Get your copy. You don't want to run out of print or anything like that, because I know some do. But let's talk a little bit about what you're doing now, because you've got a lot of really exciting things happening. You've got a monthly newspaper that you do, right?
Monthly newsletter. It's Path to Freedom. Mm-hmm. I've written a couple other books, and here's kind of the interesting thing. We're talking about evolvement. I love the word evolvement, because that's what I think life is, Cece. So I went from being a very focused dental practitioner, dealing with a child that went through some definite medical crises. It allowed me, or kind of forced me, to make some shifts. I didn't know what my next was going to be, but I did the process we just talked about. I spent time with other people and just kind of some soul searching and figuring out what I could do. And I realized, I had a propensity for real estate investment. I'd done a lot with that, and people said, well, David, you could combine your affinity for dentistry and medical professional colleagues who a lot about. That they're hardworking, they're relatively high income earners, but most of them don't really have a good sense of financial acumen in terms of retirement planning. They kind of abdicate to the traditional models of retirement plans and 401ks. And part of my story is I did a lot with real estate that gave me a little bit of a platform to segue. So it wasn't my idea, but people around me said, David, you've got affinity for these two things. You could kind of merge them together and help your colleagues, not necessarily with practice management. I mean, I could do that, but that wasn't really my forte, my passion. I really love the real estate side, the finance side. So combining them with what I learned there, and then also what I know about what the needs of my colleagues, became really what Freedom Founders is today. Very organic, was not a big vision on my board, CC. This is, again, involvement. This is, again, about taking small steps and getting feedback to see. So I started with a small group of colleagues, a small group meaning like five doctors and their wives, who I invited to my house just to talk about what I learned in life. And they were inquisitive, and they said, well, could you show us how you did this? Could you teach us? I said, well, yeah, I could teach you what I know, but I said, probably easier for you just to collaborate with me and participate in some of the investments that I do. I'll show you what I do. You can have a participation, make an investment for you, and then you can see. And that little by little grew to Freedom Founders community, which is a large community today where we collectively leverage our relationships inside the group and bring in highly curated investment opportunities for doctors, so that they're building a segue from practice from a financial basis. So they've got those options in life. They're not stuck in the trenches. They're not in a place where they don't know how to live their life or live today, which is a big deal. A little side story. It was interesting. Just this morning, I was doing a podcast interview. I've got a podcast called the Dentist Freedom Blueprint Podcast, and I was interviewing a doctor who, 38 years old, 5 children, Cece, 7 years in private practice, so doing fine, sold the practice, took his kids out of school, and went on what he calls world school. They traveled the world, homeschooling wherever they went around the world for 2 years, then came back and is back in practice again. And it was such a revealing story because he's not waiting for that mystical someday. He decided to focus on today and do something a lot of people would be fearful about doing. We talked about fear. How could you sell your practice and just go off the grid for 2 years? Well, he said he didn't want to miss out. The most important thing for him was his time with his family. And I thought, what a revealing and mature statement to make at age 38, when most people will put off bonding with their family, having those times and those memories until later, when sometimes it's too late.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a gentleman here. He says clarity is the key. Thanks, David. And also dream, then determine what's your next. Good stuff.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Really good.
Love the comment. So thank you for that. But yeah, you're so right with that. I mean, it's really looking at, so often everybody thinks all the pieces have to be put there, right, in order for them to be able to move forward. And I know I'm like you. I just kind of go with it. If something is shown to me, and I feel like, okay, it's something I could probably do, I do it. I go for it, with regards to business or whatever, because I figure like, life is short. Let's grasp what we can. Let's take what we can and live it to the fullest. So living your dreams and feeling, kind of figuring out what it is that really brings you joy in life. That's the key to living. Truly is. Yeah. Absolutely. I agree with that. Let's talk a little bit about all of your other books. So you have a couple different ones, and it's The Apprentice Model, A Young Leader's Guide to Anti-Traditional Life, and then and From the High Income to High Net Worth for Dennis.
Yeah, so this is kind of my involvement, Cece. The latter book, From High Income to High Net Worth, is a book that I wrote specifically for, doctors and dentists, people of high income who are looking for alternative ways to invest their money. That's kind of where I started. That's where I found some affinity early. What I've evolved over time and realizing that my bigger mission is, how can I have impact to a wider striation of the country, of generations, young people, mid-career people that are maybe more towards the end part of their life, but still wanting to evolve to enjoying life. And so the book, The Apprentice Model, A Young Leader's Guide to an Anti-Traditional Life, was a book that I wrote specifically for young people that could be in high school, college, or graduating and going out into career, and also for their mentors, teachers, parents, to have conversations about what alternatives are in life to just going down the road that's kind of defined by society. In other words, you can't be successful unless you have five sets of letters after your name. Well, not true. Not true. You can't be successful unless you have this kind of education. Not necessarily true. I'm not against education, obviously, but what I'm against is having society dictate that this is the way you have to do it. Because, today so many kids are coming out of school with enormous amounts of debt. And many are lost today because of the current economic situation. There's not necessarily a lot of great jobs out there for everybody. And so looking at alternatives to being more entrepreneurial in life, looking at other resources, other options, that's what that book was for. And then the current book we're talking about, What's Your Next, is again, that larger impact book, a book that's not just about just the doctors that I primarily serve in Freedom Founders, but a wider impact book, again, speak to all ages, all generations, because What's Your Next should be something that young people should also be looking at, not just a career path that's going to last like for 30 years, because Cece, we know that's not the case. You said it earlier, there's going to be shifts in our career, our businesses. The dynamics of the world today are moving so quickly that we have to be adaptable and flexible. So always thinking about and planning iterations and pivots, so you're not caught off guard when something comes up. Instead of looking at it like, oh my gosh, this bad thing happened to me, it's like, well, maybe this is a sign that it's an opportunity to take a shift right now and engage that instead of pushing back from it like we typically would do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's really a great thing that if you are working, let's say you're working a job and then you're doing something on the side to where you actually enjoy doing. And so sometimes that's surprising that when that traditional job that you thought you had, went away, and especially in the pandemic, that's happened to a lot of people. And it's really those things that they were working on that brought them joy, that's now they're living and providing, it's making a living for them. So yeah, and a lot of times it's their creativeness. But I have a son that's finishing high school, and he'll be going to college, and so he's kind of stressed out about trying to figure out what he's going to do for the rest of his life and all that. And I said, you got a lot of years to figure that out. You just need to kind of go where what you kind of enjoy doing, and kind of let that path evolve. Let it kind of shape you versus you trying to shape it.
So let me give you a little tip for your son, because there's obviously other listeners that have sons or daughters that may be in the same position, Cece. So I would tell your son, not to stress out. Certainly college is a great thing if you know what you're going to do with it. And so many times when we're young, we don't necessarily know, right? Just like your son, it's like, I feel like I need to go to college, but I'm not sure where it's supposed to lead. Well, it's hard today to know that. So I would say not a bad thing to, even if you want to take a year off, not to go play, not to do nothing. But the Apprentice Model book that I mentioned is about finding good mentors. Now, who's a good mentor? What's somebody else who has values of life, philosophy, that has a business of some kind. Could be any kind of business, but entrepreneurial, where a young person like your son could go apprentice, which means he's not going there for that to be his career path, but spending time with maybe 2 or 3 mentors in different businesses, to go to lunch with them, to gain wisdom from them, have them give the insights about what they see in the world and what they see as opportunities for a young man like your son. I think a year like that, or even 2 years, if they spend their time, invest their time that way, that's time that could well pay off. And then decide what's the next education or training I need. Now you've got purpose. Now you've got focus. Now you probably have more of a design on what your next needs to be. So again, it's using the leverage of the wisdom of other people, and not letting society say, well, you've got to do this. You better sign up for college. You better do that now. If you don't, you're going to be left out. No, like you said, your son's got lots of years. Use those years wisely. The early years are the time to experiment, to look at other things, and not be railroaded into something just because somebody said, well, that's what you should go do.
Yeah, that's great advice. Absolutely great advice. And even those that are looking at that shift now in their lives, trying to figure out what it is they want to do. We have a lot of individuals that, are they thought they were going to retire, and now they can't. So they're going into business of some sort, whether it be their own or someone else's. And so there's a lot of movement that's happening really in our world today. And so this is going to be a great book. I think this is truly something, and even all your other books too are definitely those that can definitely help people move forward in their lives, to be able to kind of create a shift, a pattern that they want, and creating and understanding what it is that they want, and knowing that combining with other people is truly the key, is that connection. That is so important. So thank you for sharing that with us today. So everyone, again, his book is What's Your Next Step, or What's Yours Next? What's your next?
What's your next?
Right. What's your next? The blueprint for creating your freedom lifestyle. And of course, this is Dr. David Phelps. And it's a terrific book. You can find it on Amazon, or you can go right here to these websites, findyournext.com, and then check out the freedomfounders.com and see if you might be interested in joining that. I think, is it like a membership type of group? Is it?
It is. It's a membership group. Business owners, people again who are looking for alternative investments, and again, we use a lot of principles in What's Your Next in that context. So giving people that dream, that vision, more of a pathway to get there rather than all the uncertainty.
Yeah, so that's great. So definitely check that out. And again, all of his other books, we want you two guys to be able to share in those and understand kind of what your life is. And it's really important to create a blueprint that's good for you. And so thank you so much for being on the show. I'm just so appreciative of it. And it's a great book. I'm looking forward to reading it. And it's really going to be a guide for those that are looking for a freedom lifestyle. So thank you so much.
Cece, I appreciate the time, enjoyed the discussion, and just hope we together and other people can help other people through the lessons we learn in our lives. That's what this is all about.
Yeah, truly is. Truly is. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Well, you all, the hour went by very quickly. I want to thank you so much for joining us here on WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. You guys were listening to the Business Showcase and the Author's Corner, Meet the Author. I'm Cece Shatz, your host, the doyen of relationship building, and our website is goingsolomedia.com. If you ever want to contact me, my email is goingsoloNetwork@gmail.com. So we'll catch you guys next time. Bye. Thank you, Dr. Phelps.
Thank you, Cece.
Bye.